Excellent. So we did a few examples of VLOOKUP before we broke for lunch. Let us continue with a few different examples as well. Please understand that once XLOOKUP becomes standard, which means that more and more organizations start to work with Microsoft 365, you will see that people stop using VLOOKUP completely. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. It will take years for that to happen. One reason, obviously, is that everybody does not have XLOOKUP at the moment. The other reason is that people are very resistant to change. So even at PwC and EY, uh, they're not really interested in learning new formulas. And there's a reason why. Because they already have their own established ways of working, they're habitual to it. And it doesn't matter what type of a consultant you are and where you work, habit is very difficult to get over. Lack of skill can be, you can work on it. So a lack of skill can be handled because you can upskill somebody, you can train them. If somebody is making a mistake, you can tell them not to make it and tell them what is the correct way of doing it. But once a habit is formed in an entire team as a complete organization culture, it is very difficult to tell people to move away from it. But mark my words, another 3-4 years, XLOOKUP is going to become standard. And the entire bouquet of functions that are dynamic arrays are so powerful. I've been working on them for a year, and believe me, I feel I've just scratched the surface, especially for people who work in modeling. So, financial analysts, any business analyst who works a lot on spreadsheet models. It is amazing to see the sort of things that you are capable of when you're working with dynamic arrays. I sometimes feel that the 19 years of work that I put in on Excel is a little obsolete because now I don't need to do that. I can do it so much better and more efficiently using dynamic arrays. All right, so we want to continue with the rest of the examples. I want to take a slightly different topic. This is called offset. I'm assuming that not many of you would have worked on it. Is there anybody who has worked on offset earlier? Just for my understanding, just to show of hands. If you haven't worked on offset, that's completely okay. If you have, could you just put a yes on the chat window so that I know how many of you have worked on offset earlier? Anyone? The offset function? Okay, now I told you earlier that offset is a modeling function. The basic idea here is that offset allows you to move from one location to another location, or it allows you to select a range of cells. Let's take a simple example. If I have 1, 2, and 3, okay? If I write equal to B11, it shows me the value from B11. But what if I want to go from B11 to B12? So I want to go from B11 to B12. So I'll say equal to offset, which means that my starting point is B11. And how many rows am I moving down? I'm moving one row down. It will take me, let me just change it to 10, 20, and 30. So it will take me to B12. That is what offset is doing. Very simple, right? So I'll also write the formula here. The other way of using offset is to select a range of cells, right? Let's do this as well. Let me remove everything else. See, if I want to select 3 cells, I can say select 3 cells. So what do I write? Equal to offset. Now I know my starting value is B4. My rows and column is not changing. That means it's 0 and 0. That means that I'm not leaving B4. I'm not going up, down, left, or right. And what is the height that I want? I want a height of E7. That means it will show me 3 cells like this, 10, 20, and 30. If I make this 2, it will give me 2. If I make it 5, it will give me 5. So what are we doing? We are actually creating a dynamic array where the number of results that I get is dependent on my parameter. What is my anchor cell, which is the number 2. For example, if I say sum of offset, it will show me the sum of the first two numbers, which is 30. Sum of the first three is 60. Sum of the first four is 100. And sum of the first five is 150. Make sense? Any questions on this, anyone? I'm also writing the formula so that all of you can see this. Formula text like this. So two things. Offset either allows you to move from one cell to another cell, or it allows you to select a range of cells, which can either be a column or a row or a combination of columns and rows. It can even be multiple columns and multiple rows. Right? The cell movement part. This is it. It's as simple as this. No? I'm saying that B4, let's say I want to go from B11 to this will now become B4 to B8. Now, if I want to go from B4 to B8, how many cells do I want to go? I will go 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So all I have to do here is I will say comma 4, and that will take me 4 rows down. So it will jump from 10 to 50. That's all. It's just moving. It's like a grid, right? Excel is a grid which has rows and columns in it. So if every cell is one movement, if I go from here to here, right? I'm just going to color the cells. How would you go? You would say that I'm moving, my rows is -3 and my columns are -1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if I want to go from here to here, I will go row -3. So that means my result will be, so if I want to go from start to stop, how do I do that? I will say offset. Now my starting cell is I15. How many rows do I want to go up? I want to go 3 rows up, and I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 columns to the left. So it will take me to stop like this. Any question on this? So I hope you can see why it is considered to be a very powerful modeling function. Because when you're creating a model, you don't know how many variables will be there. You don't know how many line items would be there. So if you specify 5 cells, then you are locking the value. But by using offset, you can actually select a range of cells which is dependent on another parameter, which means that you can externally control how many cells you want. Offset only return numbers. No. Why is it returning number? It is not returning a number or a cell. No, it is returning the value in that cell. Like this. Stop. I could have written A, B, C, D, E. And then if I said I want to find the offset like this, it would have given me A, B, C, D, E like this. Right? Okay. Let's do a more practical example now. So what we want is to find out the lifetime sales. So I want to know till date how much have I sold. So the cumulative sale, which means that till 2016 my sale would have been. Oh, where did my numbers go? I'm sorry, I actually deleted the numbers accidentally. No problem. Just some random numbers. So if I want to find the sum of sales till 2016, what do we do here? We want to say equal to, please watch, offset. My starting value is B6. What is my row and column? It is 0 and 0. That means I'm not going away from B6. I want to remain on B6, which is my starting point. What is the height? My height is 1 because I'm only selecting one row. And what is the width? The width is 2. The 2 simply refers to 15 and 16. If I make the width as 3, then it will show me 15, 16, and 17. If I make it 5, it will show me 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Okay? But there's a small problem. The problem is that the problem here is that how do I know that I want to find 3 years? Like if I want to find 16, I need 2 years. If I want to find 17, I need 3 years. Exactly. So we need to make the width dynamic, Vivek. So how do you make the width dynamic? I will use a match function. It's one of the simplest functions, is the match the following. What do I want to find? 16. Where do I want to find it? In all the 5 years, right? And when you do an exact match, which is 0, remember, in a VLOOKUP, exact is not a 0, it is a false. But in a match function, exact is a 0. Don't worry about less than and greater than. We are not going to use that. So you notice that it is telling me that 2016 is the second year. If I make it 15, 15 is the first year, 18 is the fourth year, and then 19 is the fifth year. Now we can just copy this entire function. And then instead of writing the 2, I can paste this function here. And what will happen now? Now this will become dynamic. If you notice, 15, 16, 18. We don't need this. Let's remove it. And that's it. Then you can write whatever aggregation you want. If you want to find the sum, you write the sum. And it will give you the sum of all the years that you have selected. Okay. Just see the formula once. Any questions, anyone? If offset is not a difficult function, people find it difficult because offset requires logic. So you have to apply a lot of logic because you need to know what is it that you want to do, right? It's not like a function where you just have to fill in the blanks and you get the result. You really have to know what is it that we want to come as the result. Of course, once you understand it, the match, Arvind, is just to match the following. For example, if I ask you that there are, let me take another example. Okay, so I want to say that which companies, Rashi, I'll just come to your question, which companies have been the first to reach, let's say, $800 billion valuation? So I'll say that the first company is whatever, let's say, or let's say $500 billion. So let's say Walmart, and then I say we have Microsoft and Google and Amazon, just taking some examples. Now I need to find out that there are 4 names that I have. Which position is Google? Now I know that there are 4 names, 1, 2, 3, 4. And out of these 4, Google is at the 3rd position. How do I find that? I will say match Google with all the 4 names with an exact match, and the result will be the number 3. So remember, match is not returning a result. Match is returning the position. VLOOKUP returns the result. Match, we already know the result. We know the result is Google. What I want to know is which is the position of Google. And if I change it to Amazon, it will give me 4. So when you have a series of items and you just want to know that I have 17 items and which is the position of the item called supplies, then you know that, oh, it is the 14th item or the 15th item. So for a positional value, it is very, very useful, right? That's exactly what we're doing here. So we are saying that they have 5 years, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I search for 1 year, which is 17, in all these 5, the result will either be 1, or it will be 2, or it will be 3, or it will be 4, or it will be 5. There are only 5 possible answers, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to find out. Okay? I hope that's clear. Okay, Rashi, we have kept 0 and 0 because from our starting cell, which is B6, did I go to the right or below or to the left or to the top? No, I did not. What I did was I remained on the same cell. That's why this is 0 and 0. That means that I started on B6 and I remained on B6. I did not go anywhere to a new starting point. For example, let's say that we started on A5. Can anybody tell me how my formula will change? What do I write now? Just think about it. Instead of 0 and 0, what should we write? If I start from A5. 1 and 1, simple. Because I want to go from A5 to A6 and then from A6 to B6. That's all, right? Excellent. So good. So you guys are getting it. So that is what offset does. The 0 and 0 simply says that the cell that you have defined as the reference is the same cell from which you want to calculate the height or the width. All right. And you get the result like this. Let's do a slightly more difficult problem. I want to select, let's say, 3 years, and I want to find the value of, I just need to copy the numbers from here. I want to find the average of the last 3 years. Can anybody tell me the answer? Basically, I want to find the average of these three. What will be the formula that I write? You can even unmute yourself if you want to, right? It's easier for you to speak it out rather than type it. So what should be the formula that you write? Slightly difficult, but think about it. Okay, tell me something. Which is my starting point? What is my starting reference? Not B8, not D8. Guys, I want to find the average of the last 3 years. It will be F8. F8, right? F8 is the last year. That means it's the most recent year. What will be my width this time? If I want to find the last 3 years, what will be my width? Not 3. It will be not 3, minus 3. It will be minus 3 because I want to go to the left. Okay. Row and column is 0 and 0, and my width is, height is 1, and my width is minus 3. And you notice it will give me the average of 16, 11, and 17. Okay. So good. So we have made this result, but there's a problem. The problem is, how do I know the number here? I can simply select this value. So I'll say minus 1 into B3. So I'll get the result like this. Why D8? D8 is, see, I'm only selecting 17 when I want to look at the last 3 years. If I want the last 4 years, then it will be C8 to F8. If I want the last 2 years, it will be E8 and F8.
ये जो उसको बाइफर्केशन देना है तो पहले तो दिया था.
Sonu, I hope that's okay. So remember, the one cell that we know for sure we are selecting is 2019. For example, if I only wanted 1 year, I would have written 2019 like this. Make sense? Okay, let's do one more example.
One doubt.
Yes, please.
Yeah, when you are telling about this width and height, you're moving -2, right? Not -3. You're moving 2 cells left. Is it like, or it
No,
includes?
it includes the active cell.
Okay, fine.
Right? It includes the active cell. So everybody, how this works is that if I go from H7 to H8, how many rows am I moving? 1. But if I'm selecting H7 and H8, what is the height? It is 2, right? So remember, if I go from H7 to H8, then the rows is 1. That means I moved 1 row, but my height will be 2. Obviously, right? If you're moving from one position to another position, you moved one position, but you were present on 2 positions. So that's the slight difference that is there. That is why you notice that my row and column is 0, but my height is 1. See, a height cannot be 0. A lot of people say, so why did you not put the height as 0? How can a height be 0? You are selecting at least one cell, right? So 0 will not really make any sense, right? So height and width is always 1 as the default, and the row and column is always 0 as the default, which means you're not moving any rows or columns. All right. Oh, excellent. Let's do one more example. Okay, so slightly more tricky. This time we want to find the sales of the, actually this is not top 3. This should actually be my first 3. Just give me a second. First and last. Okay, I want to find the average of the first three, and I want to find an average of the last three. Can anybody tell me how do you get an average of the first three values? This time, just like earlier, we use the height and not the width. So I'll say equal to average, offset. What is my starting point? I'm going to take starting point as my heading, which is C4. From C4, I want to come to 196, which is the first value. So my row will be 1, column will be 0. And the height will be, remember, 3. And the width is 0, or rather 1 this time. So it will tell me the average of the first three, which is 163.33. Make sense? How do you find an average of the last three values? Can anybody guess? Basically, I want an average of these three. How do you do that? Anyone? How do you find an average of the last three values? We cannot start at C15, Dipanjan. The reason is today you have 12, 11 months. What if tomorrow you get 12 and a number and then 13 and another number? You understand where I'm coming from? The point is you cannot select a cell because you don't know which is the last cell. See, today the last cell is 15. Tomorrow it will become 16 and then next day it will become 17. So how can you choose 15 as a fixed constant? That is why we need to get that number automatically. So just watch. What do we want? We want the number. We want to go to the cell 15. So I will say equal to count column C. So what will be the result? It will tell me that I have 11 numbers in column C. So if I start at C4, I can go 11 cells down and I can come to C15, which means I will start at equal to offset. Where am I starting? C4. From C4, how many rows am I moving down? I'm moving 11 rows down, and that will take me to, one second. That will take me to the last value. But now this is dynamic because when I add 12 and a number, and I add 13 and a number, do you see how the final number is always changing? So this is the part that is very important. You have to find the last used value dynamically. You can't select C15 because you're not sure if C15 is the last value or not. Okay. And from there, the rest is easy. The column will be 0. The height will be, one second, the column will be 0. The height will be -3. And the width will be 1. So it gives me 101, 153, 130. But watch how nicely this works. When I add more numbers, do you see how it is always giving me the last three numbers? Without having to change the formula. This is very, very powerful. Okay. Finally, we can simply write equal to average of all these numbers. So it will tell us the average of the last three. What is the final thing we want to do? I'll just combine this function into the previous one. We'll say that if the user is choosing H3 as first, then my answer is average of this. Otherwise, my answer is average of the last three. So if you notice very nicely, now the user can say, okay, I want to find the average of the first 5 values. So the average of the first 5 will be 143.4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 143.4. He wants to find the average of the last 2 values. He can simply say, okay, last 2, and if you show him the average of the last 2 values, which is 145.5. This is not working correctly. One second. Okay, I'm sorry. This also has to change now. So I need to make this -1 into the number. Perfect, right? So any questions on this? See, the first is very simple because you're starting at C5 and finding a width height of 3. To find a height of -3 is very difficult because you can't select C15. You will have to find C15 dynamically. And how are we doing that? We are doing that by using a count function, which will tell us that from C4, I have to go 11 rows down. Why 11? Because I have 11 months with me right now. Why did we start at C4 and not C5? No reason. We could have selected C5 as well. Doesn't matter. If you had selected C5, the only difference is then this row will be 0. And then when you do a count, you will have to do a count -1. That's all. It's the same thing. There's no difference. What if you want to find the average of some cells in between? That rarely happens, Shubham, because if you're searching for B7 to B9, the question would actually be, can you show me the some average of sales for month 3, 4, 5? And if I want to find the average of the month 3, 4, 5, then I can simply write equal to average if S. I will say my average ranges my years. My criteria ranges, my criteria ranges B5, B15. What is my criteria? The value has to be greater than equal to 3. And again in B5, B15, I'll say that my second criteria is less than equal to 7, something like that, right? So usually when you want to find an average of specific cells, this is what you do. It is very rare that you want to find a positional value. Is there any formula for finding average of top 2 and bottom 2 together? There is no formula. I mean, you will have to build a formula. There's no existing formula. It's very simple. You will write equal to, one second, equal to sum of offset. I'm taking 196. How many rows do I want? 0, 0. Height is 1 and, height is 2 and width is 1. So that gives me the sum of the first 2. How do I find the sum of the last 2? I can just say plus the sum of offset. Now this time I'm starting at C5. I'm counting the number of values in column C, doing a -1. The column is 0, the height is -2, and the width is 1. So it will give me the sum of the first 2 and the last 2 values, right? 596. Can we use the index function to locate the last 3 values and then take average? The index function, how will the index function give you 3 results? The index function, Manasa, can only give you 1 result. Index is like a VLOOKUP. Index doesn't give you multiple results. It only gives you 1 result. So it can tell you which is the last value or the second last. It can't tell you 3 values at the same time. Offset is the only function that has the ability of giving you multiple values. I mean, somehow I can manipulate an index to do it if I think really hard, but it would be unnecessarily complicated. I mean, offset is the function meant for selecting a range of cells. Why would you want to choose anything else? But if I wanted to do it using an index, I could have written, let me see. No, it can't be, because in an index, you will have to select the array, right? And your array is not fixed, because remember, your array is not till C15. It will keep on shifting. Index would not be the right way of doing this. Right? So good, we have done excellent examples of offset. Now you know how you can select a dynamic range of cells by using offset. Right? Since we're on this topic, I also want to introduce you to something very new. This is a function called filter. I will just take a small data set to give you this example. Okay. So everybody, please watch this. I have a data set which has category. I'm sorry, just increase the width. Category, subcategory, and sales amount. What do I want as a result? So my result is, please watch, slightly difficult, okay? So please pay a lot of attention. I want to find out of these 16 records, let me just make it 15. Out of these 15 records, I need to find out how many records have a sales value over, let's say, 200. So I'm just writing some new numbers here. Right? So objective is very clear. I want to see how many values are above 200. Now, if you want to see this manually, you can go to conditional formatting, highlight cells and greater than, and you can say how many values are greater than 200. So you notice these are the values. But how do I get that dynamically, right? To do this, please watch. I will say equal to filter. And in filter, what is our array? Our array is C1 to C16. What do I want to include? I want to include C1 to C16, which is greater than 200. And what will it do? It will result in only the values that are greater than 200. Any question on this, anyone? And this is dynamic. So this means that if I select 100, it will show me all the results. If I say 300, it will only show me the values that are greater than 300. Similarly, 400, this is greater than 400. Any question, anyone, on this? Take a moment. This is important. All right. Okay. But what if I had a second condition? I said that the sales has to be over 400. Yeah, it can include strings as well, Dipanjan. We are looking at C1 because I wanted the heading. There's no reason if you don't keep C1, then the heading will not come. That's all. Then you will have to put the heading manually. There's no difference. Okay. All right. Now, if we add values, will it be dynamic? Not at the moment, because remember the 16 is fixed. If you want that to be dynamic, you will have to do something a little more difficult. I'll show you. For example, you will have to say the 16 is coming automatically. Now, how do I know the last value is 16? For this, we can use a function like this, match. Please watch, everyone. Match 9.99 plus 307. You're searching in column C, and the result will come as 16. What is 16 here? 16 is the last value. Do you see this? If I add some more numbers, do you see how that result is changing? So it is always telling me which is the last cell which has a value in it. So what do I do with this match here? I can just copy this match and I can put it instead of the C16. You asked me, so I'm giving you the answer, but remember this will become quite complicated, but I'll still answer it. We'll have to put C to C like this. We'll have to concatenate. Then we will have to write this. Then we have C2 to C like this. And then we will have, oh God, it's really getting very complicated. Let me see if we can do this. C to C16. Indirect, and then this will be another indirect. Oh, so we're getting the answer. Let me just break it down into different lines. I hope it is clear, everyone. See, what is this part? Match and match. This is nothing but the number 60. Makes sense? So it is dynamically going to find out which is the last used row of your column. And Dipanjan, for everybody, 9.99 plus 307 is nothing. It's just a very large number. Because when you search for a very large number, obviously it will always show you the last row, which will be C16. You could have even written 100 billion and the answer would still have come. This is just something we, as a developer, we follow the syntax. Like I said, you can write any large number and the result will work. Right? Is it clear, everybody? Oh, I want to first show you whether it is working or not. So if I add more numbers, do you see what is happening? If I add 450, it's not working. Let me check 1 second. Okay, that's peculiar. Oh, 450 was already appearing. Is that it? Let me check. 1 second. So C2, C20, which is okay. Why the hell is giving me 20? It should be 21. Mm-hmm. 1 second, guys. Okay, for some reason it is giving me 20. Let me just make sure that my calculations are automatic. Yeah, I think there's some slowdown happening. I'm not sure why that is happening, but you get the idea, right? It is working. There's some reason why it's taking a little bit of time. I don't know. There must be something wrong with my Excel. But you get the idea. Like without changing the formula, I'm still able to get multiple values like this, right? Okay. Now, what if you did not want the condition to be greater than 400? You wanted the condition to be sales is between 200 and 400, like this. So for this, we'll have to change it a little bit. We'll say equal to filter. What is our array? Our array is, please watch, C2 to C16. What are we including? We are including C2 to C16, which is greater than or equal to 200 multiplied by C2 to C16, which is less than equal to 400, like this. And 1 second, let me just put it in parentheses. Should be okay, right? Like this. So what are we doing? We are saying that no, there is no debug module in Excel. The only thing you have is a evaluate formula like this, and evaluate allows you to go through the formula one step at a time, like this, right? So you can go step by step like this to see how the results are coming. This is the only thing that you get. There is no other debugging. There is no stop. There is no breakpoint. I'm assuming that you come from a programming background, but there is no debugging in Excel. In VBA, you have a very primitive form of debugging. You do have a debugging window there. So basic things, creating a breakpoint and all, you can do that, but not in Excel directly. So I hope it is clear. What we're doing here is, let me remove everything, okay? Let's just keep one line. Does it make sense? I want to say C2 to C16 is greater than or equal to 3 into C2 to C16 is less than or equal to F3. What will be the result? It will be a series of zeros and ones. What do I want to do now? Now I want to filter only the ones. So I'll say filter. What are we filtering? C2 to C16. And the result will be like this. But what if you wanted the other two columns also? So now I can say, I don't want the result from C2 to C16. I want from A2 to C16. And the result will be all the three columns. Very cool, right? So you have managed to get the entire table like this. Questions, anyone? So my result is the entire three column, which is A, B, C, and I'm only looking at the values between 200 and 400. But what if you wanted to find only the values which are office supplies? I don't want to look at furniture and technology. So I can create a third argument saying multiplied by, please watch, A2 to A16 is equal to office supplies. And now what will happen? Now it will only show you the sales for values the sales for the record, which are office supplies, and the value is between 200 and 400, like this. And there is no limit. You can keep as many arguments as you want, like this. Take a moment, look at this, and just let me know if you have any trouble. Can we use a comma between the arguments or the formula? No. Janvi, it's not an argument. Look at this. Filter only has two arguments. The first one is array. Do you see this? The first one is array, and the second one is, one second. The first one is array, the second one is include. The asterisk is not an argument. It is a multiplication. I'm multiplying this result with this result with this result. Are you able to see what I'm doing? Hold on. You know what? Let me explain it like this. Please watch, everybody. If I say equal to, it's not like a filter. Rashid, let me just show you. If I say A2 to A16, everybody, is equal to office supplies, what will be the result? Now the result will either be true or it will be false. So I get true and false. Make sense, everyone? This is my first one. What is the second one? I will say C2 to C16 is greater than equal to 200. That also gives me trues and false. And the final one is that C2 to C16 is less than equal to 400. So what is happening? It is telling me how many conditions are met and how many are not met. So if I multiply this into this, what will I get as a result? I will get zeros and ones, which means what? If you look at the sales column and this result, which are the results that I want? I only want the second one, the third one, the seventh one, and the third last one. That is what is happening. This entire thing that you see, everybody, this is what I'm doing with a single filter function, which is A. Basically, I'm checking from column A whether it is office supply, from column C whether it is greater than equal to 200, again from column C whether it is less than equal to 400. If all these three conditions are met in one row, that is the row that I want to pick from my entire table, like this. Make sense? Rashi, it's not like a ampersand, because an ampersand is a concatenate. The asterisk here is not concatenating, it is multiplying. It is a multiplier. It is an arithmetic operation. Okay, it is not a concatenation. I'm literally multiplying true, false. True is 1, false is 0. So obviously when I multiply true into false, which is 1 into 1 into 0, it's like a logical and yeah, you could say that, sure. It's like a logical and, right? Which means that all the three conditions have to be met. Right? All good? Let's move on. Great. So I'm happy that we have done this example. It is slightly difficult, but let me tell you, as of today, if you speak to 100 consultants and managers and associate directors at Big Four, I can assure you that no one of them would know this, or maybe one or two of them would know this. They would not even know that there's a function called filter, let alone know how to create something like this. So what I'm teaching you is advanced. That's why it's also difficult, right? So when you do it on your own, you will realize that it's not that easy. It does take quite a little bit of effort to understand this. For example, let's say you wanted to find out, I have office supplies and I have, one second. I have office supplies and I have another value called something else. So maybe What starts with an O? I'm just writing something here. It doesn't matter what we're writing. Now, right now, you notice the organisms is not getting picked up, right? But what if I want to find every category? What if I want to find every category that starts with an O? So now I can say that it should not be equal to office supplies. Please watch. But if I find the left of A to A16, comma 1, that means the first character should be equal to O, and it results in nothing. Wait a second. Let me check. This is okay. Why is my left not working? It's peculiar. It should have worked. 1 second. So left of A to A16. Sorry, A to A16. It's giving me this, all right. And if I say is equal to O, it is giving me a result. Why is it not working here? Wait. Yeah, I think something to do with the parentheses. 1 second. So I think this entire thing will have to come inside a parentheses also. Yeah. So you see the result, right? Look how interesting this problem is. Somebody says, tell me all the transactions that are between 200 and 400 and the categories starting with the letter O, right? Or the customer ID starting with the letter L. For this, you can even use a left function inside like this, right? Again, I mean, this is never ending. I can keep on making more and more complicated examples. But the idea here is that you need to know how capable the formula is. Akash, the asterisk is, you cannot use a plus. There is no plus in Excel. A plus is just a addition, right? No, let's not get confused. See, this is not a concatenation, everybody. This is a multiplication. When I say into, I'm multiplying the value, right? So Vivek, you have said O followed by a wildcard character. I'm not sure if wildcard characters will work like this in a left function. Let me just see once. So anyway, I think we can do that later. Let's not spend too much time on this. Otherwise, we'll keep. You can try this out on your own, and otherwise, ask me tomorrow if you have any problem. Right? Great. Let's come to flash fill now. How many of you have not heard of or worked on flash fill? Just say no if you haven't worked on flash fill earlier. Flash fill is this button in data in the top right corner, this one. Okay, so quite a lot of no's. Okay, good. That gives me an idea. Thank you. Now, flash fill is a little bit like machine learning. If any of you have worked on machine learning, you know that machine learning fundamentally is very simple. It says that you have to train the system by giving it some test data. Once it understands that test data, then you run it for the balance data also, right? So what do we want? I want to separate my first name and last name. So I have to give Excel a test data, that means a sample data set. So I will say that, see, the first name is James and the last name is Smith. What has happened? Now Excel has learned that, okay, this is how Havish wants the first name and the last name to be separated. So James is the first name, which is on the left of the comma, and Smith is the last name, which is on the right of the comma. When you press Control E, it will automatically run that pattern for the rest of the values as well. Any questions on this? I mean, actually, there shouldn't be any questions because there really is nothing to ask. Dipanjan, Flashfill is available on every version of Excel starting from 2013. 2013, 16, 19, every version has Flashfill, only 2010 doesn't have it. Krishna, all I did was I gave one sample, James and Smith. I come down and I press Control E, E for elephant, Control E and Control E. That's all. I'll do many more examples. How do you separate this? If you notice, there is not even a space between the first name and the last name. But if I say James and Smith, it will automatically separate the first name and the last name. How is it doing that? Because it is able to understand that the case is changing, right? You could not have done this using a formula. It's not possible, right? Excel doesn't have any formula that allows you to separate values like this, but Flashfill can. Let's do some more examples. Here I want to separate, I have 4 values with me. So I have an email ID, I have the department, I have one number, and then I have another number. So tell me, if you only want to get the third value, which means the number 3.9, 4.2, 15.7, 1.6, and so on, I can write 3.9 and press Control E, and you notice I get the third value. Very cool. But this is how you can train the system. So if I tell Excel, no, I don't want 3.9, I want 80710, then it will only give me the fourth value. If I tell it, no, I want the email ID, jamessmith@abc.com, then it will give me the email ID. But if I say, no, I wanted the email ID without uppercase, then it will automatically make everything lowercase. If you only want the name and the email ID, then you can say James Smith, colon, and did you see what happened? Now it is giving me both the name and the email ID. Did you see how powerful it is? Have any of you worked on regex, regular expressions? Oh, I'm sorry, let me just put it on the entire window. Have any of you worked on regular expressions? No? Some of you might have. The engineers, the computer engineers would definitely have worked on regular expressions. So regex is one of the most important tools for a analyst or anybody who works with data. Now, if you haven't heard of it, that's not the answer you should be saying in your interviews. You should know what it is. So regex basically is just a sequence of characters that define a pattern. Regex is not something which is available only on one language. So if you notice, it is available on Python, it is available on C#, on JavaScript. Regex will be available on every language that you can think of, right? Okay, what does it do? So if I give you a simple example, regex allows you to write something like this, which is a pattern. And then, for example, I want to find every letter followed by 5 numbers and 2 letters. How do you do that using a formula? You can't. Excel does not give you the capability of defining something like that. The regex has this capability. So let me see if I can show you an example. Anyway, you can Google this on your own. So it's a little bit like regular expressions, which allows you to do data cleaning. It's a very, very powerful tool. And it is there. I mean, ideally, you should be using it on Python. Python has a library for regex. Let me just give you an example. Wait. So you will import re. Re is for regex. And let's just say you want to use something like this. What are we searching for? We are searching for the first white space character in the string. So if I say /s, it will tell me the first white space character. Remember, this S is not the letter S. These are just inbuilt syntaxes that are there inside the regex function, right? Again, you can just go to any website and just see how this works. Like this is a replace. So if I want to replace every white space character with the number 9, so you can see the result. Let me just run it once again. Did you see the result? So every space has been converted to a number 9, right? Of course, these are very silly examples I'm giving you, but regex can do very powerful things. I don't think it's there on this website. Like, look at this. It looks at any word that starts with an uppercase S. Now, you can't do that on Excel. Excel doesn't tell you. See, Excel has a find function. It has a search function. But it doesn't have a function where you can control the case manually. But if you do a BS with a W plus, this is what allows you to search for an uppercase S, right? So you can look at this in detail. I think it is a must. You should all know some basic regular expressions, at least if you want to work. Please remember, please understand that technology changes very rapidly. Now you will say, but Havish, we have never heard of any senior, any alumni, any faculty telling us that regex is important. My first explanation for that is that just because they are not telling you doesn't mean it's not important. First thing. Second thing, 2 years, 3 years back, things were very different compared to what it will be after another 2 years. Because of the ease of technology, because of the fact that now everybody studies Power BI and advanced Excel and programming, what will happen is that regex will start to become much more common. Earlier, a lot of companies would not even know what is regex if they don't have an IT team. But now people will become familiar with it. Like, I'm not a programmer, but I know how to work on regex, right? Why? Because I realize that there are a lot of things I can't do on Excel. That's the point. If you want to prepare yourself for the next two, I have 12 years of experience, okay? I did a 3-year stint with Reckitt Benckiser. Then I went into academics. I taught at a couple of universities. Then I ran some very successful market research companies. I have done projects for Ministry of Power, Ministry of Finance. I've done projects for the World Bank. The Ease of Doing Business Index for 2017 was done by me for the World Bank. So I have quite a fair bit of experience, okay? And I'm telling you, things change very rapidly. Every 1 or 2 years, you see a shift happening. 3 years back, there was no need for people to learn Tableau and Power BI and all of that. Now things have changed. Last year, dynamic arrays were launched in Excel, and suddenly the entire landscape has changed. People like me who have been working on Excel for so many years, there was a point where we felt we don't really have much more to learn. Sure, we kept on improving, but there was not a new area to learn. Now what has happened is these new areas have come in and we also have to start from scratch. For example, I'll show this to you tomorrow. Excel is not going to work on Visual Basic in the future. Excel is going to work on something called TypeScript. So just a 10-second demonstration. So Microsoft is shifting entire Excel to JavaScript now, and they've created their own version of JavaScript called TypeScript, and this is how you can do coding on Excel now. So just to give you an example, I'm sorry, my internet is not working properly. If I select a cell and I click on run, you will notice that the cell that I've selected, I'm able to, or rather the tab, okay, sheet 1, if you notice, I'm able to change the color here. Now you would say, Havish, what's the big deal? I could have done it manually or using a VBA code. But the interesting thing here is that you're using not VBA, but JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for this, which means that it is web friendly, which means that you can access other things, other codes from GitHub and from the internet, right? So this also has a support for, it also has a support for different URLs. You can go to GitHub and download your codes from there. This is what I'm saying. This thing is very new, right? And this is a free add-in called ScriptLab. Now, you might say, but Havish, nobody works on this. Nobody works on it because it has just been introduced. But will people not work on it 3 years from now? Of course they will. That is what you have to remember. Whenever you learn Excel, don't just learn something people already know. You have to prepare yourself for the years to come as well. Krishna, from HTML5, you started drag and drop. What does that mean? Like when you're creating a page, you mean? Sure. So this is, this is not a web page, essentially. No, Krishna, see, it's very cute when people say, no, you don't have to type codes and all. That way, you don't need to learn any programming. Even in Python, you can go to Stack Overflow and copy codes from there or do a drag and drop. But the logic will still have to be created by you. The formula will still have to be written by you. The API still has to be referenced by you. How is that going to happen? Of course, for that, you will have to write all the code. If you feel you have a career without learning programming, please, it's a wake up call for all of you. You cannot. When I asked the gentleman in the morning, I think the faculty or the placement head, he said most of the students are at an intermediate level. I am not there to point fingers at anybody. All I'm saying is that you cannot call yourself an advanced user of Excel if you don't know VBA and if you don't know dynamic arrays and Power Query and Power Pivot and a little bit of TypeScript. It's not possible. You can't leave out an entire 20% of Excel and say that I'm an advanced Excel user. And I'm in the same boat as you. I am a non-programmer. So I have never done JavaScript in my life. I am also learning TypeScript as we speak. Like today, you guys are learning Excel. I'm also learning TypeScript. I go to YouTube, I watch some videos and I practice on my own. It's not that it is easy for me. It is equally difficult for me also. What I'm saying is that it is important to do. I'm not saying that it's easy for me and difficult for you. It's difficult for everybody. But I don't want you to be in a silo where people don't even tell you that these things exist. If your peers and mentors are not telling you, then I don't know, get the information from somewhere else. And this is not just big talk. This is actually something I'm demonstrating to you, right? So I hope you see the value in all of this. Wonderful. So we got a little distracted, but let's come back. Somebody asked me, how do you separate text and numbers? So this is the example. You write UST, Control E, and then 300 and Control E, and that's it. You're able to separate your text and your number. Very cool, right? And things like these would not be possible using formulas if the currency was not always 3 letters, if it was, let's say, 4 letters. It can also switch positions. So if I write Smith James, it will reverse the position, okay? So the surname comes first and the first name comes afterward. It can also change the delimiter. So if I want to replace the comma with a underscore, or let's say 2 underscores, what will it do? It will automatically replace all the comma with 2 underscores. Very cool, right? What else? It can even do concatenation. So if I write Alden, USA, zip code 60001, in one click, you will get the answer like this. How amazing is that? Imagine the amount of time it would have taken you to write a formula and do this manually. You don't have to do any of that. You can do this with a single click. Do remember that the results of Flashfill are static. So they're not dynamic, which means that if more values get added in the future, the results will not get updated. You will have to manually press Control E once again. So if I say New Delhi and India and a number, you have to press Control E once again. It will not come on its own. Okay. You can even use it to do padding. So something like this, Control E, and you get the result like this. How amazing is that? Imagine how much time it would have taken you to do something like this. That completes my example. Anything you would like to ask on Flashfill? Take your time. We are in no hurry. We have a lot of time with us. Anyone? Any questions? So it is a lot of fun. You can do this with as many columns and as many rows as you want. It will work instantaneously. If you say, but how are we confident that the entire list of answers is correct? Obviously, if you know that the data that has been given to you is uniform and the errors are uniform, then obviously the answers will also be uniform. If your data is incorrect, then obviously the result might also come incorrect. For example, if one of these numbers had 2 numbers less, and I press Control E, now you notice my result comes like this. Obviously, because Excel doesn't know what to do with a number that has a different number of digits in it. So you can't create logic on Flashfill. Flashfill is a simple train, test, and execute, which means that you're training the system, it understands the problem, and it gives you the result. But you can't explain to it what you want. You can't see the coding behind it. So even in VBA, when you run Flashfill, you can't understand how is Excel doing all this. Excel has its own algorithm, and it just gives you the results like this. But very powerful feature, and definitely a must have in your arsenal. So this is one of the things you should be very, very comfortable with. Flashfill is a acquired learning. That means that it's not about reading books and documents and, you know, learning the theory. Like in VLOOKUP, there is some theory that you have to know what to do, what not to do, where it does it work, where does it not work. Flashfill is pure practice and hit and try. The more you do it, the better you will understand. The more you practice, the better results you will be able to extract. Like you also know the shortcut is control E, I also know the shortcut is control E. But if both of us have a data set, I can guarantee that I will be able to get the results in a much better manner and more efficiently than you. How? Because I just know how to tweak Flashfill to get exactly the results that I want. So it's an acquired learning. You will only learn it when you practice. Otherwise, if you only wait for the example to be given to you one day, then you will not learn much. Right? Great. Okay, there's a question. Whatever Excel operations we will do in the future will be work specific. Is it required to go through all the functions? No, you can't go through all the functions, and neither do I recommend you to go through all the functions. Excel has over 500 functions in it. Power Query has 912 functions and objects and methods in it. You really think that anybody can even attempt to remember all of these? If you look at VBA, which we'll be doing tomorrow, this is VBS object library. There are thousands of objects and methods in it. What do you think? Anybody remembers all of this? No, absolutely not. See, you have to prioritize. So you learn the ones that you know are very important. Don't skip that. Like I've told you today that index match, offset, indirect address, row, rows, column, column, and cell. These are very important. There is no excuse for you not to learn them. You should learn it on priority. Should you learn functions like, for example, $D? I don't know. Maybe your work requires you to calculate a fractional dollar, but maybe you don't need to do it, so you need to forget it. Similarly, there's a function called trend. But do you really need to do trend analysis on Excel? If you do, then you need to learn it. Otherwise, ignore it. See, when you go to functions, you have all these categories available. Like you guys are finance students, so I would assume that for you, finance formulas will be very important. But if you look at all the others, like in text, do you need to learn Unicode and Unicar or a T function? I mean, I'm not really sure. Like a T function just tells you whether something is text or not. So it really depends on whether you need it or not in your job profile. How do you know that? You don't. But the priority list is already there. I've told you which are the functions that are very important. So you should definitely start with that. And then a little bit at a time, you can keep on learning more and more. Right? But see, Krishna and everybody else, nobody can give you a list of functions that are important. One is because it depends on your jobs and your roles and your profiles. The needs for everybody would be very different, right? But don't make the mistake of taking a book and learning everything or memorizing everything. That's the worst thing that you can do. You have your entire career to work on Excel. Just do it a little bit at a time. Make sure that every week you're learning something new. I think if you're doing that, you're sorted. You don't have anything to worry about. Let's come to our pivot table example. All right. I have a data set and I want to, you know what? You guys are finance students, so I'll take a financial data set. One second. So I want to come to trainings and then files and then Excel. No, not Excel. Go to Power BI, guides, data sets, finance. I mean, it's not a financial statement, but at least the measures are financial, so you'll be able to relate to it much better. Let's see and understand the data, everybody. No hurry, okay? We'll spend some time on this. We have 700 rows. There are different segments. So let me just apply a filter. Channel partner, enterprise, government, mid-market, and small business. There are 5 countries: Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, and the USA. There are 6 products that I'm selling. Discount band is high, low, medium, and none. Units sold, manufacturing price, sale price, gross sales. Then we have the discount, we have the sale, we have the cost of goods sold, we have the profit, date, the month number, month name, year, and the target, right? Very simple data set. Tell me, what would be the, as a financial analyst, what would be the first 5 things that you would want to present to the client? Like if your client says, this is my data set, what would be the top 5 things that would be important to the client? Tell me. Profit, revenue, absolutely. What else? Sales and profit, we know. What else? Sales is your top line. Profit is your bottom line. Fair enough. Units sold, absolutely. Revenue by region and product. That makes more sense. What else? The highest selling product. Excellent. Country-wise data. What else? Achieve target or not. Brilliant. What else? Highest profit-making region and profit. Great, because you want to find the best performance. What is the operating profit? Sure. What else? Think more. Economic analysis. That's a very wide term, Krishna. Highest cost of goods sold, sure. Think of something more. You're telling me all the right questions. Tell me something more. I'll give you a hint. Just listen carefully. Guys, listen. I want to find out whether my top 5 or let's say my top 2 countries have had a consistent profit for the last 4 years or not. That means I want to view a trend line, right? Revenue split across region, given discount or not, segment having highest sales. So what you're telling me is a level 1 problem. I want to look at a level 2 problem. Estimation of demand, I'm not really sure how I can get the demand because, sure, I guess we can do some basic, we can make a linear regression also, growth rate. Great. Let's start with this. How many of you have not worked on pivot tables earlier? So just say a yes, no on the chat window. No. Okay. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so it's leaning more on the side of no. So I say it's about a 60-40 split. All right. A pivot table is a summarization. A pivot table allows you to give it a large data set like this. And a pivot says that, you know what? What if you want to view the total of all the region or all the country? Now, either we write a formula, we'll have to put a SUMIF, or we'll have to apply a certain filter. The benefit of a pivot is that it will automatically create these formulas for you. How do we do that? We will select our data, go to insert, and then insert a pivot table here. So if you look at the description, it says that it allows you to arrange and summarize complex data. Just read the first line, don't read the second paragraph, right? So it allows you to arrange in your own way. So I can arrange the data in whatever order I want. So I can create a report in whatever fashion I want. I will click on pivot table and don't worry about anything else, just press OK. A new sheet is created, and on the sheet, you have a list of all the columns on the right side, which is here, right? Then you have 4 areas. You have value, row, filter, and column. We'll do the first most important thing, which is we want to look at the sales amount. So I will select my sales, which is I don't have sale here. What do I have? Let me just check once. Oh, I do have sales. Why can't I see my sales here? Okay, actually there's a blank before it. Never mind. Let me just fix that so it doesn't create any problem for us. Okay, so I will select sales and put it in value. And what it has done is, remember pivot table is a summarization. Guys, hold on. There was a electricity cut. So let me just quickly turn off a few things. Give me 10 seconds. I'll also put my laptop on power saver. Okay. All right. Now, what it has done is it has told us that this is the total sales, which is the sum of sales. All right. Why can't I close this? But what if you want to see the region wise or the country wise sales? I can put country in rows and automatically it does the sum if formula and it tells me that this is the total. Remember, there will be no formula in this cell. So don't think that the formula has been written. It is giving you the result and the correct result, but the formula will not be shown to you. Any questions so far? Anyone? Any questions so far? So we selected the data, we created a pivot table, right? And all we have done is we have put sales in value and country in rows. All good? Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to find out the percentage contribution. So I want to know what is the percentage coming from each country. To do this, we can right click on the first number, show values as percentage of column total, which means that every country's performance will be kept in the numerator and the denominator will be the grand total, and it will tell me 20.96, 20.51 and 100%. Assuming you did it manually, how would we have done it? We would have said equal to B4 divided by B9 with a dollar, right? Like this. But that's the best part. In a pivot, you don't have to do these formulas and all. You can just right click, show values as percentage of column total. Very simple, right? What if we want to see the running total? So again, I'll copy the pivot table. This time we want to click and say, show values as percentage of running total, which is a cumulative. So it will tell you that Canada is 20%, France is Canada plus France are 41, the first three are 61, the first four are 78, and all the five are 100%. For example, if I remove my country and I keep something else, so I keep my product here, show value as running total in my product. What is it telling me? It is giving me a Pareto. It is telling me that my top 4 products or top 5 products are contributing 80% to my top line, while the last product is only 18%, like this. So if we sort it largest to smallest, we can get this. So the largest is 27, second, third, fourth, and the fifth. So if you make a chart now, the chart will clearly tell you what is the percentage contribution of every single product, like this. Of course, you can experiment with different chart types. Just a bar chart, like this. But here is the beauty of a pivot. Because it is so dynamic, what I can do is, please watch. Right now, it is telling me the percentage for all the products as a running total. So let me just change it back to a percentage of column total. This is much easier to understand, right? It adds up to 100%. I want to know whether this is true for all the regions or not. So what we can do is I can select my country and I'll put it in legend. So what will happen? Now, automatically, the chart will now show me all the products and all the countries like this. So let me just go and change the chart type to a column, which will be much more appropriate here. So I'll make it a stat, 100% stat column, the third one. And what does it do? It now shows me the percentage contribution of every country to every product like this. And if I click on switch row column, what is it telling me now? Now my countries are in the x-axis and it is showing me the percentage contribution of all the products like this. So do you notice a trend? If you see carefully, the contribution of VTT to Canada is very high, and similarly for USA also it is very high. But if you look at Germany, in Germany the maximum contribution is coming from Velo, which is the product category. No, there is nothing you can do to overcome it because pivots are very restrictive when it comes to creating some charts. So if you want to make a waterfall chart, you will have to copy the data from a pivot as a value, and then you can create a pivot chart. Or directly on a pivot, you will not be able to create waterfall, tree maps, funnels, and all that. Not possible. Right? So we're getting somewhere. Let's do something more. Again, I want to copy my entire table, and we want to first remove the calculations. So show values as no calculation. So I'm removing my calculation. And what I want to do now is to find the difference. Okay, just think about it carefully. If Germany is my base country, I want to know which country has done better and which country has done worse. Very simple. I will right click on Germany and then say show values as percentage difference from, which means that Germany is the baseline. So if I find the difference from Germany, it will show me that Canada is 5% above, France is 3% above, Mexico is 10% behind, and USA is 6% ahead. Again, if I select, go to conditional formatting and insert a data bar, now we'll get a nice data bar like this, which is a green, red data bar. So positive numbers are green and negative numbers are red like this. Right? So it's an excellent way of presenting your data. Same thing, if you were working with this data set, there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm just copying this on a new sheet. How do you make the data appear a little better? You want to improve the visual appeal. So I can select all the values except the grand total, okay? Never select the grand total. So if you notice, I'm only selecting from here till here. On conditional formatting, you can insert a color scale, and the color scale will be like this, which means numbers which are higher are green, in the middle are yellow, and the smaller numbers are red, like this. You can even keep a two color scale like this, or you can keep a single color scale like this, depending on what you want. Right? So I'll keep a single color, a three color scale like this. Yes, if the underlying data changes, then it is reflected. For example, this is Canada, everybody. I'm just going to go to my original data set and I'm going to replace Control F. I'm going to replace Canada with India, just as an example. So Canada with India, replace all. So what will happen? When I come to my output, I can simply refresh it. Right click and refresh, and Canada will become India here. All right. That's all. That's how simple it is. But if you're adding more rows to your data, then refresh will not work. If you have added more records, then you will have to go to pivot table analyze, select, and then say, oh, sorry, change data source. And then in change data source, you will have to select the new rows that you have added. So you can click on change data source, and you can add the new rows that you have added at the bottom, right? Like this. But if the data is changing, then with a refresh, it will work, right? Okay, let's not stop. Let's do a few more. I want to make a pivot table, and this time we want to keep our date in rows. Now you notice that the moment I put my date in rows, it automatically gets grouped into year, quarter, and month. I haven't done this. This happens automatically. So whenever you put a date value, it will automatically get converted into year, quarter, and month. The last one is the month. Which means what? That if I put my sales value, it will show me the total sales for 13 and 14. If I make a chart, it will show me 13 and 14. And if I click on the plus sign, it will show me quarter wise, and it will show me month wise, like this. Very cool, right? If you select the data as a table, then adding more rows will work. Yes, it will work. Like in my case, it is a table. So that will work when you click on refresh. The refresh, you will still have to click on manually. With VBA, can you directly refresh the pivot table? Yeah, absolutely. It's just a single line of code. If you want to use VBA for it, you simply say VBA code refresh all pivot tables, and you can simply write this. One second. That's it. Just one line of code. This workbook dot refresh all. That's all. So what will happen whenever a user will click on the worksheet where the chart or the table is there or the data is there, the data will automatically get refreshed. Right? So it's an automatic refresh. Excellent. So we have the data, but I want to do something more with it. Okay, please watch. I want to find the seasonality. To do that, we will remove the quarter. We don't need it for now. I will keep the month in columns. No, that doesn't seem right. Wait a second. Actually, I can't. One second. I don't really have that sort of data with me. Let me think what we can do. We actually need larger data sets with us. When we come back, I'll show you the seasonality. Let's not do that right now. What else can I show you? Let's look at the, maybe, okay, let me show you how we can change the design. Right now, the year and the month is coming in a single column, but if you go to design, you can go to report layout and then convert it into a tabular form, which means that the year and the month will be shown in different columns like this. Once you have done that, you can then say repeat all item labels. So the values are repeated, and this data looks much easier to understand than how it was looking earlier. All right. Right. And same thing, if you want to find a month over month change, for example, you want to know equal to my current month, which is C10 minus C9 divided by C9, right? So this tells me that I have grown by 10%. So some months you have grown, some months you have not grown. How do you find this? Right click, show value as percentage difference from, and what are we finding a difference from? We are finding a difference from the previous month. So we will select previous, and it will show me the difference against the previous one. Now, do remember that when you're working with multiple years, it doesn't show you the difference between December and January. This is just the way it works. It will reset after every year. That's the only thing you will have to deal with, right? But you can see a month over month change here. So when I make a chart, I can see in which month there was a positive increase, in which month there was a degrowth that happened, right? So let me just put my, 1 second. My label high so that it doesn't clash, right, like this. And then of course, if you want, you can color it and all, and you can, it's a very nice way of presenting the data. You can merge two pivot using a VBA code. Why would you ever want to use a VBA code? VBA has, see, VBA is not a tool. VBA is just programming. VBA is meant to automate tasks. If you want to work with um, two tables and merge it into a single table for a pivot, then you use Power Pivot for it, something that we'll be covering tomorrow. While applying filter, let's take sum of sale, and then I do some arithmetic operation. Based on the filter, rows will be hidden. Krishna, you'll have to explain that.
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask, if I'll apply a filter on this sum of sales column, and then again do any average or any kind of operations. So sometimes when I will apply the filter, the rows will be hidden because those part won't be coming under the filter. That.
Like this, you mean? You mean you're hiding some rows?
Yeah. Again, after that, if I want to do any operations with any column, like in sum of sales, I want to add all the three percentages.
Hold on. So I've done no calculation. Tell me what is it that you want to do? You
We
want me
can
to filter some rows?
like some filter we can apply in sum of sales, like greater than 5 lakhs, less than 10 lakhs, something like that.
Okay. Now what? I've done it. Now what?
Yeah. Can we do like arithmetic operations, like choosing all? Because sometimes we can just see the total average or number, the total counts by just selecting all the columns, right? But sometimes it when we do this, we can see the total sum of all the numbers. Like actually, I'm not able to explain. Like sometimes the rows will be hidden, sir, after applying the filter.
I understand you. Great. So what you mean to say is that right now, if I look at the sum of these numbers, it will come as 2133 and 2281. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're saying that if this is Q1 and Q2, and I apply a filter here, and if I don't select a few, then the sum will not change. This is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for this you use a subtotal. So you'll have to say subtotal with 9 and then select the numbers, which means that if you filter the data, the sum will only come for the filtered data, not for the hidden ones.
So this kind of problem also happens in a pivot table, or we don't.
Pivots work very differently because, for example, if I, let's say, filter something out, if I'm only selecting Jan and Feb and March, then it is showing me the value like this. So 1 second. So if you notice, 2014 is, the total is this 92311. And if I, or let's just look at 30, let's keep it simple. Wait. So if I look only at 13, then it is showing me my 2013 total like this, right? Which is, gee, why is this number not coming correctly? 1 second. Just a second. Just want to make sure I'm not done anything different. Oh, I'm sorry. I filtered the data. No, that's why it's not coming. Right. So if I select 13, and if I say I'm looking at my 4 months, which is September, October, November, December, the total is 26415255. If I again filter and I only look at, let's say, September and October, so what will happen here? The total is automatically changing. Do you notice? It is only showing me the total of these two. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Because in a pivot table, by default, if you go to design, you notice it automatically applies subtotals by default. You can't see the formula. Like if you click on the cell, you will not notice that there is a subtotal formula here, but at the back end, there is a subtotal that has been applied. So in pivots, you wouldn't have this problem. Pivot will only, basically, let me put it like this. Pivot will only show you the aggregation of the visible cells. If you don't have a pivot and if you want to see the aggregation only of the visible cells, then you have to use a subtotal, right? Instead of sum, if you need the max of some products and want rank as a calculated field. Vivek, what's the question? Tell me once in detail. So I have product and I have sales. So if I want to see the max, I can, what is the max you're referring to? Do you want to see the maximum product or the maximum transaction in every product?
Transactions.
Yeah, so you click on summarize as max. So if I tell you, this is the, so for Amarilla, which is a product, the maximum individual transaction was 1 million. That's all. And if you want to see a rank, you simply say, once you have done the summary as a max, then you say show value as a rank, largest to smallest. So the rank will also come like this. Right? So if you notice, let me remove all the decimals so you can see this clearly. Let me also sort the data. Sort largest to smallest. So Paseo is my number one and Carretera is the last one, which is the sixth one. So if once I've done the maximum in summary, then I can go to rank largest to smallest, and then you will get number one like this. So, right? We don't need a calculated field. The calculation is already there in Pivot. Great. Everybody, I think we are due for our final break for the day. So we'll take a 15-minute break. It's 3:50. We will start at 4:05. Please come back at about 4 o'clock. We start sharp at 4:05. I'm also stopping the recording right now. So you will have to re-log in. If you have any trouble, Asha, you can just text me and let me know if you have any issues. I'll send you a different link, but most likely it should work. But this particular session I'm stopping right now, and I will restart the link in 15 minutes.
Okay, sir. Sure.
We have some topics left on Pivot. So once we come back, we will continue with it. And we will also do Power Pivot. So we'll go to more advanced topics now. So see you in 15 minutes.
So the next session, we will have to log in with the same link.
With the same link. If at all there is an issue, you let me know. I will immediately send a link across to you.
Okay, sir. Sure.
All right.